So you have Zoe.
We have Zoe. Zoe's at day camp today, so it's her day to go twice a week.
Okay.
For her socialization. Been going about a couple months now.
Okay. And then it sounds like she's leash reactive.
When you mean pulling a little bit, yep. Not extreme, being a 15-pound dog.
Sure.
But what I've been doing as far as, I do my limited reading as to what trainers do, and it's like don't pull, and she she ends up coming back to my side, and it's just a repeat, and then she'll go as far as she thinks she can go, and it's don't pull.
Okay. Is she on a harness?
Yes.
How long has she been doing this for?
Her whole life.
Okay. And then what's inspiring you now to address the issue?
The primary thing that we're looking for is we live in a co-op. We live with, I have to take a service elevator down.
Okay.
We have other dogs. They're not large. We have dogs. We're in Lakeview. Dogs everywhere. The warmer it gets, the more dogs you see.
Yep.
And she just can explode sometimes. If I can't anticipate it and have her sit and hold her by her neck just to keep her from freaking out, and have a treat with me, we'll turn a corner, run into a dog, and she'll like, boom. No matter what size, no matter what breed.
Right.
And it's just unacceptable. I want to be able to go to Starbucks, sit outside at a table, and not have her react like she did last Sunday to every passing dog.
Sure.
With a bark. Yeah.
And is she just reactive on leash but social off leash?
Socially, she's doing great at daycare. They have under 40-pound dogs, 2 rooms for the larger dogs, smaller dogs. They have no issues with her. She socializes well with them once she's familiar with them. And we have a friend 2 blocks down. She'll join us up for meeting. Has a little Westie. She knows the Westie. She knows Morse by now, so there's no reaction. But it's that strange dog, that passing dog, and as you know, they come from everywhere up here. Yeah. And she'll be in the middle of a urination, and it's like boom. She'll
Sure.
try to it doesn't work. So that's our primary. That is our primary socialization situation. Secondary to that, we have to deal with it. I don't know if you guys work with it. It's going to be separation. We've got her during COVID, both home, 2 daddies constantly with her. The process will take, I go back in August, so I've got a chunk of time. Plus, we're going to be gone for 2 weeks in August at a beach. Personal friend going to be moving into the house, so I'm not worried about, crating. We started crating her for overnight, so she's very comfortable with the crate. But alone in the room, we don't know. You don't know. We don't know because we haven't started the process yet. Gotcha. She does whine when she's behind the gate, and we go to the other room, 2 rooms away, to use the bathroom, and she'll have some barking going on.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's
Are you and you said you're like you said like a townhouse 2 split?
It's a co-op building, Lakeshore Drive,
okay.
1927 building. So there's limit on the size of the dogs we can have, and you have to use service elevators only. So it's a back hallway type of thing. Sure. I call it doggy door, and you can meet into a dog coming in as you're going out.
Yep. And
going out to the street side. So it's a big deal. I mean, I'm going down 13 floors every time she has to go out to pee, and she's house trained beautifully. She's never pooped in the house, and urination was as the bladder grew. We're doing the timing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so I know we have the reactivity, potential, separation anxiety. In terms of like, let's say you could have what you wanted with Zoe. Okay, don't worry about, don't like limit yourself in terms of what you think you could achieve. Like, if you could have what you wanted, what would your life with Zoe look like?
My life with Zoe would be, she would sit when I tell her to sit and stay. She would come when I asked her to come without having to have a treat. And I will tell you, it's my fault as well because I haven't been proactively going after those specific things. She does sit and stay. We're in the elevator, corner, sit. She does it. So if there's another dog, I know the floors where we stop at. I'm ready to deal with her, and she does stay. And it's like, okay, our turn when it's open to go. So she's getting the process. She's getting the commands down. But I haven't spent a lot of time on come and down, which is a big one. And down, when I say down, I want her to stay in the down and not follow us out of the room.
Yeah.
I mean, those are beautifully ideal things.
Okay.
And you know, the dog aggressiveness with other dogs. Yeah.
Would you want to be able to socialize her on your own outside of daycare, like with friends' dogs, or like or are you fine with like her friend Morris and then going to daycare?
Yeah, I'm not a big doggy park kind of person. I mean, especially she just came out of Giardia, and we dealt with that for a few weeks, which was a lot of fun. And you know, you get that from being around too many dogs and their dog shit. And she's a Hoover. She will suck anything up off before I can even see it. It could be a cigarette butt. It could be anything.
Sure.
I mean, that's another thing. My command is leave it.
Sure.
And she does follow through with it. But I don't know if I could ever change that behavior in her not to suck things up off the ground.
Sure.
Is that just a Frenchie thing that we call her Hoover? You know.
Yeah, it depends on the dog. Some dogs are just like, like little vacuums. They just are insatiable. Yeah. So it's not so much a Frenchie thing as it is, dogs are not just supposed to be hunters, or also foragers. So she just happens to have a greater kind of foraging instinct.
She does. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else with Zoe?
I would think that's the extent of it.
Okay.
It's I don't know if it's basic to you or if it's simple to you, but it's just like that, I can't get there. I just can't get there. And I've got a couple months to get there.
Sure.
And so
how'd you hear about us?
Actually, it's an interesting process. We went through Yelp and just basic, internet connections. Someone made a comment that they were too busy, but they recommended you. And it's been maybe a month or two since I made the initial contact. And Maria got back to me just the other day and saying there's an opening. So I just assumed everybody was just overbooked, overwhelmed with, which I'm sure you are, with all these COVID babies.
Yeah, exactly. It was literally like 2020, mid-March for everybody, just downhill.
Yeah.
Super slow. And then it started to pick up in the summer. And our summer averaged out pretty good.
Okay.
But then the winter came, and like for us, because we're a facility as well now. Well, because I'm the owner. I used to do strictly home to home. It was just me and my assistant Maria.
Okay.
And then I expanded to the facility. And the way it works training wise is the, spring, summer, fall seasons are really busy for me training wise, but then winter would get slow.
Got it.
So I opened up my facility. So I was like, okay, so like, because I was growing and everything. But then when COVID happened, nobody was traveling. So like the Christmas, the Thanksgiving, the New Year's, there was nothing going on. And then when 21 hit, it was just like 180, and all of a sudden it just spiked again.
Well,
so yeah, everybody's overwhelmed.
Good for you. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear business.
So in regards to, what you're dealing with, this is what I specialize in.
Okay.
Leash reactivity, aggression, separation anxiety type stuff. That's my niche. Did you happen to do any research like on how we train and the methods that we use?
I looked at your website. The only thing I saw that was a question mark to me that I'm going to bring up here is the shock collar that you had on one of the dogs. It was a Rottweiler or some, I don't know the breed.
Sure.
But just talk to me about your approach and how you deal with a individual dog like this.
Yeah. So the term shock collar is incorrect.
Okay.
Right? Because it sets in your mind that you're electrocuting your dog. And that's not how it works. The term shock comes from one of two places. One, when e-collars were first designed many years ago, I think they've been around for 30, 40 years. They only had like 5 settings, for example. So your dog could be yelping at 3, but then not listening at 2, right? So, and then the escalation in levels was very, they're very, they're big, right? So 1 could be like a subtle tickle, and then 2, you're like twitching.
Okay.
And so it was shocking in the sense that it was so abrasive in terms of each increase in level. Now the collars that we use are have 127 settings. Okay, so 5 and 127 are the same, but I have 122 more divisions now. Okay, so I can really fine tune it to the dog. So if 40 is too much and 30 is too low, 36, 34, 35, we can really kind of dial in to the dog and the situation. They actually use the technology on humans. If you've ever been to a chiropractor or physical therapist, it's what's called a miniature. It's a TENS unit, TENS.
I've had it.
Run your muscles to twitch. Yep. That's the technology. So shock comes from the old school collars, but then also in the dog training world, there's different fronts. You have your positive reinforcement only, which is completely anti-correction, anti-aversive, stuff like that. It's purely treats and praise type stuff. And then you have trainers like myself who are what we call balance trainers, and we use everything. So there's 4 quadrants in training: positive punishment, positive reinforcement, negative punishment, negative reinforcement, right? And all that means is adding something good and taking something good, adding something bad and taking something bad. That's all that means. Okay. So e-collar is technically looked at, it is a what we would call positive punishment type tool, because you're adding something that the dog does not like. Okay. But then when they perform the behavior, you remove something they don't like, and if you'd like, you can also add in something that they like food, for example. Okay. So the reason why this tool, in my opinion, is the most effective tool is, 1, off the bat, you get off leash control. Okay. On or off leash, if she were to be playing with dogs and, like, let's say she was getting a little rambunctious, I can correct her and dial her down to tell her, don't do that behavior. Okay. When it comes to the average dog owner, it's the easiest tool to learn. Everything else is too skill-based. There's too much technicality to it, which, you're not a dog trainer.
Right.
And I'm sure you don't want another career to add to your repertoire, right? Because other methods require you to learn and practice a lot of stuff and basically become a trainer.
Right.
Okay? But the problem is you put all this time into that stuff, but it still doesn't work.
Right.
Because dogs don't give each other positive reinforcement. Okay. Dogs don't praise each other for obeying the rules. Dogs correct each other. So if Zoe were at daycare and the handlers weren't managing the group, and she was getting out of line, the dog, let's say she was trying to mount, would turn around and bite her. Okay. And that dog is not aggressive. That's just the dog saying, hey, don't try to mount me. Right. So that's technically positive punishment. That dog is adding something that she does not like to deter her from doing that. Right. They don't sit there and like greet each other with like, hi, welcome to daycare. This is the rules of our group. We don't mount each other. Right. They don't do that stuff. They don't have conversations. And dogs regulate each other, whether or not they know each other or not. Okay. You could take, a dog to a dog park, or even just watch at a dog park and see them bite and correct each other when they get out of line, and they've never met each other before. And in our world, we look to a third party. If something's going on, we call the police, right? We don't really step in as civilians unless we feel we absolutely need to, right? Because the authorities won't make it in time or something like that happens. And that's if there's a personality type that is that confident, kind of like, I'm going to step in and help this person or help this situation. Like if there's a fire and there's like a child in the fire, right? Until the firefighters come in, if there's no time, I'm going to come in and try to help here, right? But that's all dependent on the personality type of the people that are in the area. So it's the same thing for dogs. So dogs are physical animals. They nip and bite each other. This here is a dog bite. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
So this is a Great Dane. Okay. And he came here for a board and train he came for a 4-week board and train. He had never been trained in his life before. He was unneutered. He destroyed the house. He chewed up and destroyed everything. He had never been in the kennel before. Okay. And we did some training with him. He did great. I went to go see if he would fit in the kennel that I had. So I wasn't even really trying to put him in there. I was just trying to see, are you going to fit in here?
Mhm.
And he was like, I'm not going in there. And he just looked up and he bit my hand.
Wow.
That was it. Okay. So he set a boundary with me and said, hey, I don't want to go in there. And this is my correction to you for trying to put me in somewhere I don't want to go.
Mhm.
Right. So it's kind of like if you take that to a human, if someone's trying to take you and put you in a room against your will, are you not going to fight back?
Yeah,
Right?
fight back. Yeah.
So dogs, because they don't see the world that like we do. Dogs are primal, right? So for me, because when I tell people that story, they're like, but that makes no sense, Jesse. You're just trying to put the dog in the kennel. I'm like, but that's because you know what I'm doing. The dog does not know what I'm doing.
Right.
So then the dog became defensive. So he comes to daycare. He's boarded with us. He's a regular. There was no like, because the owners were like, because nobody wanted to take the dog.
Mhm.
And I was like, no, I was like, I have no problem. I'm like, even though he bit me, because I understood why it happened.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
But again, he used physicality. He didn't sit there and say, Jesse, please, it makes me very uncomfortable to not go in this kennel. He doesn't have that line of communication.
So did you end up training him?
Yep. I just had to like take a break so that my hand could keep up. But yeah, I trained him.
Okay.
So so yeah, I'm used to this stuff. So the reason why the e-collar is so effective is because it's what I call a bite on a button. Okay. You're able to correct your dog easily and effectively without having to learn too much stuff. Okay. So because of COVID, I had to change how I operate. So I used to be solely home to home. I used to travel to all my clients. Then COVID happened, and then nobody wanted people in their home.
Right.
So, and I got my facility September of 2019. Okay. March of 2020, COVID hits.
Right.
So just as things were starting to get busy for me, COVID hit and it was just dead.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here, my rent's still due. My
Yeah.
bills are still coming, and I'm like, I got to figure out a way to make this work. And I knew that with e-collar, I could train dogs without having to touch them. Okay? So then, but nobody really believed that I could. Like we would get calls and like, I don't know, I don't think it's going to work, blah, 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 blah. And finally got my first client. She did a testimonial for us on my YouTube channel. And then from there, everything just turned around. And then people I was like, you can watch this video because their dog broke the husband's shoulder 3 times.
Wow.
Sent them to the ER 2 times in 2 years.
Jesus.
Yeah. And he was
I
friendly.
thought I had issues.
He was friendly, but he was just 80, 90 pounds of pure pulling power. So, they signed up and he 180 within just the class, and they were just amazed because I didn't have to touch the dog. I just coached them through it. And then from there, and then we started filming things because it's so much information for people that it's too much to remember.
Oh yeah.
So then people would just turn around and watch their videos, but not only that, but it was showing everybody else that like, hey, like our methods work, and it's purely uncut proof of how it works. Okay. So with the remote collar, the way it works is when you apply it to a human, they always start low, they work their way up, and they say, tell us when it becomes too much. Okay. And then you say, hey, that's too much. And they go, that's 10. We're going to dip you down to 8. How does that feel? And you go, that's fine. I can deal with that. Okay.
I've studied acupuncture, and we used to put them on the needles, and the needles would twitch. And then you would say,
deep tissue.
yeah, exactly. So you connect the electricity. So I understand the concept, and it just AKC, you do your background, you do, all these dog outlets saying absolutely no choke collar, no electrical shock, no, but the word is shock versus a tinge or a tingle or whatever training mechanism may be.
And it's because positive only front and trainers like myself, it's like a constant kind of butting heads. So the positive front will use words like shock, torture, pain, hurt and stuff like that to deter people from using these tools, right? But dogs don't give each other treats. Dogs do not medicate each other. Dogs do not praise each other. Dogs are physical animals, and they will bite each other, and they will bite humans as well if they get out of line. And I've had plenty of my clients be bit by their own dogs. So it's just this false reality that they're kind of creating that makes people think you can achieve things using just positive only.
Mhm.
And that doesn't even work for humans, right?
What are the other, okay, so you do the collar. Do you do the choke as well, or
It's,
do you stay away?
it's like most of the time not needed,
Not needed,
because the
okay.
collar is so pinch collar.
Pinch, okay,
Yeah, pinch collar is designed to mimic a dog bite. Okay,
got it,
that's why it looks the way it looks.
right.
Very effective tool. However, can take too much technical skill for the average dog owner.
Yeah, it looks like an S&M thing. I don't want to even do it.
Right.
You know,
So,
it's too weird.
yeah, no, it's perfectly safe because people think they're spikes, but they're rounded edges.
Yeah.
Okay. So the only time I really use a prong collar is if I'm dealing with a very large or stubborn dog. Okay.
Okay.
So like I had a lady, she was like 90, maybe 100 pounds.
I'm going to
And
do a quick introduction since he came over. This is Gabe, the brother of Zoe. They were gotten 2 weeks apart from each other. Gabe is a shelter cat, and he picked us. He picked Zoe as her sister. And this is her tussle buddy. This is her biting buddy. This is, so I understand the, the nipping. This is as far as you go, but there's never been blood, or there's never been. He's got claws, and he can use them if he wants to.
Sure.
He can climb a wall if he wants to, but he won't. And anyway, so I just wanted to say this is also a socialization tool.
Sure.
And they just love each other.
Is he snapping?
Yeah. Oh, he's such a, he purred, went under her belly the minute we met him, and he was full of bugs and gross and stink, but boom, under her belly, and he purred. I'm like, you're the brother.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's another form of socialization, or just, she's not a petulant single child type of thing,
Right. Yeah, I think I saw that in the description as well.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
He just happened to walk up, so I thought I'd pick him up and show you.
He's cute. So with the prong collar, so it was a young lady. She was like 90, maybe 100 pounds. She had a 150-pound Great Dane.
Jesus.
And her Great Dane was leash reactive like Zoe is. And she lived in Bucktown. So we had to use prong and e-collar because the prong gave her leverage those moments when she turned the corner and she couldn't plan for seeing a dog.
Right.
Because her dog would just drag her across the street.
And I could scoop Zoe up by her.
Yeah.
By her.
You have that available to you. So,
Exactly.
So we did prong and e-collar because prong was just in case. And then e-collar was really the bulk of, it's what allowed her to correct and deter the behavior that wasn't reliant on physical strength.
So can you tell me, based on what you're knowing about Zoe, that you will not use a prong for any reason?
Oh, I don't need to. I don't think I need to.
Yeah, I don't see her that aggression that much.
Yeah, most of our cases, like 95% of our dogs are not on prong, they're just on remote.
Okay.
The 5% that are on prong are typically the like 70-pound plus type dogs. Right. Yeah. Every now and then a smaller dog, but like I also got to think like as the owner, like I had a couple of clients, they're probably in their 60s or 70s with the reactive German Shepherd. So I have to compensate for things, right? So here's Zoe's 14 pounds.
Yeah.
So I'm like, physically, we don't really need that much leverage.
Right.
But with the remote collar, in most cases, it's all that's needed.
Okay.
So it's just the muscle contraction. You're not electrocuting your dog. It's not like sticking your finger in an outlet. It's just a miniaturized TENS unit. Okay. So it does two things. It teaches, we can use e-collar to teach Zoe what to do and use it to teach her what not to do. Okay, so those are two different things. To do, sit, stay, come, leave it, right? That's a do that type of command. And then the reactivity, the lunging and barking, the separation anxiety, that's more don't do that. Does that make sense? Okay, so like so the way we would approach this is with the leash reactivity, the first thing we always teach a dog is how to walk correctly on a leash. Okay. Now harnesses promote reactivity, just so you know. Okay. Now it's very common for small dogs to be placed on a harness because we don't want anything being put pressure on the trachea because it could collapse the trachea, which I understand, but then it creates this alternate problem, and that's almost always leash reactivity. Okay. So what happens for a lot of people is when they get their puppies, they put them on a harness because they don't want the puppy choking. The puppy is friendly and sees a dog and then wants to go say hi, and the owner pulls their puppy back so that they don't bother that dog, right? And they keep repeating this. Every time they see a dog, they pull their puppy back, and it creates frustration and agitation, because when a dog feels pressure, they want to go against it. That's called opposition reflex, okay? So if you pull left, they pull right, you pull right, they pull left, you pull back, they pull forward, okay? It's a natural instinct that the animals have. So you apply this to every time they see a dog, and what happens is the puppy starts to associate. Every time I see a dog, I feel negative tension, and they get frustrated, and then they get agitated, and then over the course of time, we start to see lunging, barking, snapping, reactivity. Because now it's over the course of a year or whatever, the owner is associated. Every time we see a dog, I pull you back. And we use this exact same technique to train protection dogs. Okay? In protection training, you'll see them put a harness on a German Shepherd. They'll pull back on the German Shepherd, and then there'll be someone in front of them kind of agitating, creating suspicion to provoke aggressive responses. And then we pull back on the dog to make them more frustrated because they can't get to the target.
Right.
Okay. So people unintentionally are teaching their dogs to become aggressive or display aggressive responses to dogs by the harness. Okay. So by teaching Zoe how to walk correctly, I take 5 steps, she takes 5 steps. I take 3 steps, she takes 3 steps. I stop, she automatically sits. When we have that level of focus and discipline, it tends to fix 70 to 80% of problems. Okay, almost. So the heel is such a powerful tool or command to teach because it fixes a big chunk of problems. The main one being reactivity. Okay, so it's essentially making her more concerned about what you're doing than she is about the environment around her. Right. But it's not just the obedience, it's the discipline behind it. It's the contraction. It's me nipping and biting her with the button that's settling her down and teaching her what not to do. Okay. Now, in some cases, the healing exercise will not resolve the reactivity. Okay. If that happens, it just means her intensity is greater than the meaning of the command itself. So then we have to correct the behavior directly. Okay. So indirectly is when I'm walking with her on the leash, if she gets out of place, she gets a correction. So to avoid the correction, she stays in line with me. Okay. So then it prevents her from becoming reactive. Direct approach would be she doesn't care. She starts to lunge and bark. And then I would apply a negative or apply the collar while she's doing the behavior to teach her don't do that. Okay. So I was raised old school. I was spanked.
Me too.
And
8 kids, I'm sorry.
Yeah, my mom had 4 and I'm the oldest.
Okay.
So if I only talked back to my mom once in my life, okay, that kind of shows you that correction that she applied was enough to deter me from that point going forward. Right?
That was a bad slap.
And then I got spanked for like not doing my homework, for not doing my chores, for doing things I shouldn't, right? So spanking, it hurt, but the intention was not to hurt. Does that make sense? So it's the same thing when we do e-collar training. There's discomfort there. And the higher we go, the more uncomfortable it becomes. But we're not trying to hurt the dog. We're trying to deter behaviors, right? Or create reliable responses. So like if I call Zoe, I don't want to call her 20 times before she comes. I want to call her and it's an immediate, I'm coming back to you, right? And that's what most people's level of training is. I repeat the word so many times and then my dog might do it, right? We don't train that way. If I say something, the dog's going to do it. If I say down, the dog is going to hold it down for 2 to 3 hours. That's the level that we train to. But in order to get that level of control, you have to have some kind of deterrent, right? Because if I'm using food and I tell Zoe to down and she gets up 10 minutes later and I go, well, you're not going to get this piece of chicken now. That's not a consequence to her. Right.
Yeah. No, you're on my way of thinking.
Yep.
Yeah. So Tell me about, I'm not rushing by any means. I have an 11:20 over on Elston. I need to get down. It takes me about 10 to 15 minutes. So I've got good time, cars parked right out front. Tell me about how you would approach, I mean, now that COVID is easing up, I mean, I'm vaccinated, Michael's vaccinated, we can, I still wear masks, obviously outside, but do you still come to homes and use the environment of the home, of the dog's home
So
to train?
we have a couple of choices.
Okay.
So because of COVID, we started doing training outside at Oz Park, which is in Lincoln Park.
Yeah, I know. That's part.
Yep.
Sure.
And people love it because we're outside, we're in the middle of dogs, people, strollers,
Right.
robots, baseball games, everything's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we've been training there, aside from the wintertime, obviously, in the spring because of the rain and everything.
Right.
So I still do home to home, but now home to home is more expensive because most of my clientele either meet me here or meet me at Oz Park.
Okay. Yeah, I'm all about that. Because that way I could observe you as what you're going through and what she's going through at the same time, right? Or do you not want the owners to be observing at all?
No, are you talking about training with me, or are you talking about like a daycare or board and train type deal?
I'm talking about lessons, kind of like not a boarding situation.
Okay, yeah. So what would happen is, let's say we train at Oz Park. Okay, you pick a time with Maria.
Right.
We show up, and then I would send you videos prior that you would watch to prep you for your lesson.
Right.
And then we just jump right into training. Okay. And I just coach you through it. I don't need to touch Zoe. I'm there with you. I'm coaching you through everything.
So it's very interactive for me, Zoe, and you're there as a coach.
Yes. So I rarely, if ever, have to touch the dog. The only time I have to is if we're doing recall, because recall is a 2-person exercise. Okay. But otherwise, everything can just be done by you with verbal instruction.
Is that your most common approach with most clients, is to just have that meeting at Oz Park and having the owner be the trainer as well? Okay.
I don't need to learn how to train dogs anymore. I have trained so many in my career.
Yeah.
And this is why also with what we're doing is so effective, because you're building everything from ground zero. You're learning all the concepts yourself. Because before I used to train the dog in front of you so you could observe, then I would give the dog to you, and then I would coach you through it. But the problem with that approach is I would get over all the hard stuff. So then the owner didn't learn how to do that.
Right.
And life is not.
Yeah, it could persist and come back.
Yes, because it's not tied to you, it's tied to me.
Right.
So now, like, let's say we're at Oz Park and Zoe becomes reactive and I coach you through stopping the behavior. It's you with the leash. So she goes, oh man, Dad, like he must not want me to do this anymore. Right. I like that. Because it's relationship based. So like, it's like with kids, like I knew when I was with my grandma, I could get away with more stuff than when I was with my mom. Right. So, but now the drawback to this is I can only take you as far as you're willing to go. Okay. So what that means is, and this is just as to prepare you. I don't know how it would turn out. Most of the time it's pretty straightforward, but French bulldogs can be a bit tough. Okay. So let's say Zoe's being reactive. The collar goes to 127, right? We start low, we're working our way up, and we're trying to figure out what's going to deter Zoe from being reactive. Okay. She might need a level 100 out of 127, even though she's only 14 pounds. Okay. Because people judge their dog by the sweetness that they see or the size of the dog. Okay. I have a 8-pound Conde de Tulier Maltese mix that I'm training with right now, who's bitten a couple of people, by the way. His number yesterday was 80. Okay. And he's only 8 pounds. Wow. Okay. Because you gotta remember, dogs are physical animals. So their size, their temperament, the sweetness that you see when you cuddle with her does not have any effect on her physical resiliency. Right. Okay. So psychologically, it can be tough for some people because you're logical and you're going 80 out of 127, that's 2/3 of the power. Right. But if she's still being reactive, I go, yeah, it's 80, but it's still not enough to stop the reactivity. Like, we got to keep going until every dog has a breaking point.
So what you're saying is the human factor gets in the way of training sometimes. Yeah, you know, when that's what you meant when you say we can go only as far as you want to go.
Correct.
So okay, I hear you.
Yeah, and it's pretty straightforward. Like there's a methodology to it that's just common sense. So we don't come in at 100.
Right.
We come in low, we work our way up, right? Because I've learned with people, they have to see it not work. So by the time we get to 100, if needed, they're like, well, we've already done this for a few weeks, and clearly my dog needs it. I don't like it, but I know I've already tried the other stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Did you really say something?
Nope. No, I'm anything else that I'm missing?
Yeah. One would be, so what determines the length of time and the cost is just how much control you're looking for. Okay. So I have 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs. I kind of feel like you're in the 6 to 9-ish range. So think of it this way: 3 weeks.
Is that one lesson per week?
Correct.
So that would be a total of 6 lessons, total of 9 lessons, however.
Correct.
Okay. And how long do the lessons last?
An hour.
Okay.
Yep. So think of it as the 3-week is I want to walk my dog, you know, like leash reactivity, leash pulling. 6-week, walk my dog, go to the park, like recall. So walk and heel and recall. 9-week is walk my dog, go to the park, go to restaurants. 12-week is I do everything. We go hiking. The dog's gonna be off leash in unenclosed areas, restaurants. We go to friends' houses. Like, we do everything with our dog. Okay. So there's 6 commands: sit, stay, down, come, place, heel. Those are the 6 foundational family pet commands that are meant to be functional. Okay. They're yours, like down and sit now are kind of treated as tricks, but they're meant to be functional. Like you said, down and don't move for the next couple hours while we're here at your at the restaurant or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
So if the way I approach the programs depends on the length of time. Okay. So if you do like a 9-week program, I'm thinking, okay, we got reactivity, we got potential separation anxiety. Okay, those are super important. So we would cover heel first. That's typically 2 classes. By the 3rd class, if reactivity hasn't resolved itself, we would spend the class on reactivity, correcting the behavior, things like that, all the approaches that you can use to see what's going to help address it and stop it. Then we'd have to experiment with the separation anxiety. You'd have to lever. We have to see, like, is this going to be an actual thing? If it is a problem, the issue with separation anxiety is that it happens when you're gone.
Right.
Okay. So then you would most likely just do like a bark collar. Okay. A bark collar is the same thing as an e-collar, but it corrects automatically when the dog barks or whines. Okay. And because there's no way to correct the dog if you're gone.
Right.
Okay. So then we see what that helps address. So that's already 4 out of 9 classes. If everything's going well, by the 5th class, we would jump into recall. Okay. Which is the come when called. Recall is typically 2 classes. So that's class 5 and 6. So that leaves 7, 8, 9. Okay. By 7, 8, 9, we could do stationary work. I would most likely teach like the place command, which is go here and don't move. It's more lenient than down, but it's the same thing. Okay. So down is strict. Down is lay down, don't move. Place is go to your bed. I don't care what you do, but don't get off. Okay. So if you go to a restaurant and you plop a towel down and you say place, she can sit, stand, or lay down, chew on the bone. People can pet her. She just cannot get off.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So it's simpler to teach, and it still gives you that aspect of stationary control. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's usually a class, which leaves classes 8 and 9. And I would treat those as variables, just in case maybe if the reactivity is tougher than we expected, because it can happen. We have time to still work on reactivity. If everything's going great and and she's learning really well and you're practicing and doing your homework, then we teach more stuff. Okay.
How much am I committing myself to during the week, the other 6 days of the week? Every day you'll give me a lesson to follow through on and to
correct. So what would
throughout-
happen is you apply your training as you live your life. Okay. The one command that's the hardest and takes the longest to teach is the recall. Because you got to go to the park, let Zoe be Zoe, right? And practice calling her back. But then if you call her back too much, then she doesn't want to leave your side. Okay. So then it's like a balance to it. Heel, you would practice every time you walk Zoe. Every time you go on a walk, you're employing the heel. So that one tends to be the fastest thing that people learn. The sit, stay, down, or place commands progress according to what you put into them, because you can practice at any time. You can practice inside the house, right? You can practice while you're working from home or if you're watching TV. But what happens is they're so easy to practice that people tend to ignore them. Right? They're like, I can do this whenever I want. And then next thing you know, they go to the restaurant. Oh, I hope my dog doesn't move today. And they have not practiced. Okay. So with my method of training, once we've taught the skill, you have to put in a little bit of time to just kind of make sure the dog is learning it, but it goes straight to application. After the first class, once you learn heel, I'm telling you, every time you walk your dog, train your heel. Okay. And it's going to be functional immediately. You just have to be willing to go to the extent needed to make it happen. Does that make sense? So if you feel bad about it and you're too low in the collar, she's not going to do anything.
Right.
You have to speak to Zoe in a manner that she understands and respects in order for her to actually comply with the command itself. Okay.
Okay.
Other questions?
No. So it's the next step would be to set up a program. I am a flight attendant who's not working until August.
Okay.
So I've been off through COVID, which is nice. Michael's been working from home, which is nice. So I'm pretty much the daddy who can put the time and effort into this. Okay. And days of the week doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a Saturday or a Sunday. Actually, prefer not. But I don't know what your schedule looks like.
So that makes it easier. I'm not going to comment on my calendar just because I have, and I've gotten Maria in trouble for it.
Yes.
So I believe if you have daytime availability, you can get in sooner.
Okay.
Okay. Because most people are evenings and weekends. Like the world is kind of going back to 9 to 5-ish, right?
Right.
So my evenings and weekends are booked.
Right.
So you have if you have daytime availability, that should be much easier to get into. Yeah. Maria, of course, would confirm that. The collar that you would need for Zoe is most likely the Dogtra 280C, and Maria will send you this information. It's meant for 35-pound dogs and under.
Okay.
Okay. Now, when she becomes reactive, like, would you say she's like pretty intense, or would you say like she's intense, but you've seen worse?
She can be intense. She could be really intense.
And she's 14 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
14, 15, yeah.
So you have two options here, okay? The Dogtra 280C is meant for 35 pounds and under, okay? Now, what people aren't aware of is like all the bully type breeds, bulldogs, French bulldogs, bull terriers, pit bulls, Rotties, all those very powerful dogs, is they tend to be physically tough, okay? So I actually have a Frenchie that I started with yesterday. He's bitten like 5 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, almost took someone's nose off.
Oh.
Yeah. So I told her, I'm like, because he's got all these, like, such an intensity, I'm like, and he's a Frenchie, I was like, we're going to put him in the highest powered collar because you don't want to gamble if something happens, not being able to stop it. Right. So you have two options. One would be the Dogtra 280C, which is meant for her dog, her size. There's also the Dogtra Black Edition, which is meant for 70 pounds and over. Okay. The only reason I recommend this is, and I know they're very different Frenchies, obviously,
right,
is when they get reactive, adrenaline is pumping, they're intense, right? All this stuff is going on that you might need more power to override. So you get more from less. So on the smaller collar, she might need 60, 80, but on the higher power collar, she might only need 20, 30.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
It's still intense, but you can still control it.
Yes, it's still, it's much more refined. I could put on my 8-pound Chihuahua and he would be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but it's personal preference. Maria will send you this information. And because let's say you did the 280C, which you can do, and then it like ends up not working out, like she's just overriding it. Well, now you got to stop the training, go get the collar that you need, wait for it to come in. Now you got your collar, and then kind of reassess, like, okay, what are her levels going to be on the new collar? Okay. So I think you'll be fine with the 280C. If you think you'd rather just err on the side of caution and rather have it and not need it, then the black edition is what we would recommend, and Maria would send you the information for that. The last thing would be, the most common question I get is, when does the e-collar go away? Okay. Do you drive?
Yes.
Do you go on the expressway?
Yes.
Do you go the speed limit?
Actually, yes.
Okay. So you're
I'm over
follower.
60. Yeah, I'm one of those people becoming the grandpa. Yeah.
So, but I think you can agree that almost everybody else does not.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Drives me nuts.
But if you see a squad car, what happens?
If I see a squad car,
If they see a squad car,
they start slowing down.
slow down.
Yeah.
Okay. So I call the e-collar cop on a collar. It the presence of it, she's going to alter her behavior. So then, what the heck's going on? Dogs. When they feel the collar, they know that it's like the presence of the cop. They're going to alter their behavior. So then when it's off, expect her to be reactive and stuff. Okay. So this has nothing to do with my methods as a trainer. It's called opportunistic behavior. She knows that when that cop's around, she has to behave. Okay. When you take that cop off, she's going to push those boundaries. And you get this with any method of training that you use. If you're doing positive only, same thing. You remove the motivator, the dog's not going to perform as well. Same thing, positive punishment. You remove the negative motivator, the dog's still not going to perform as well, right? So if growing up, if my mom said, Jesse, you can't watch TV, you're grounded, and she had to leave the house to run the errands, and there was nobody to like watch me, I'd watch TV because I could get away with it. So it's not, because people expect the dog to learn and then decide to be a good dog, but that's not how it works. She is forever a 3 to 4-year-old child up here. So you have to tell her what to do. Okay, you have to make sure she is being a good dog. Otherwise, if she goes, well, the collar is off and I know you're not going to correct me, I'm just going to do this behavior again. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's super common. Like people always ask me about that. I go, it's just how it is. And it's not that you're always having to use the collar to correct her. It's you've done all your training and it's on. So she knows like, okay, I have to behave myself because I know there's threat of consequence if I don't. Okay. Plus you can't account for moments like where you turn the corner, there might be a dog there. Right. And then she just blows up because it's so sudden, but you have a means of still stopping the behavior. That makes sense. Or like I've had clients whose dogs have taken off on them because of fireworks. They were running away and stuff because nobody planned for that. But because of the e-collar, they were able to override the situation and then make their dog return. Okay. So even in situations where you lose control, you still have the ability to regain control even off leash. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it's pretty much my next step with your business is to talk to Maria. She's going to give me availabilities. She's going to give me the information of the tools needed. And we basically sign a contract from there.
Yes.
Okay.
And then it would be easiest if you send her your availability. I know you're open, but because she's got a cross-reference with mine.
No, that's fine. Because I take Zoe, well, Tuesday, Thursdays, we like doggy daycare. That's kind of like set. So maybe that brings it down to Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. But can she contact me first? So I have we have a going,
yeah. What happens is I email her and I give her the information.
Okay.
For each consultation, then she turns around and gets back to people. Okay. Just as to let you know, with the onboarding process, a new client, because it's like a constant line of people, it can take up to 5 to 7 days for her to get around to getting in touch with you.
Sure.
Just a heads up on that, because I was telling people 2 to 3 days, and she's like, no. She's like, we're so busy. It's like 5 to 7 days.
Okay.
Okay. But she'll get back to you. So no worries there. And then I'll give her all the information, and then she'll get you taken care of. Okay.
Great.
Right.
Great.
Thank you,
I
sir.
appreciate it. Good to meet you. Take care.
Bye.
All right. Bye.